Mathurā, once a jewel of prosperity and culture, now lived in the suffocating shadow of King Kamsa's tyranny. The vibrant city was slowly being choked, its spirit dimmed by the oppressive atmosphere. His rule was absolute, a decree etched in iron and fear. Every aspect of life was dictated by his whims. Every command was not merely an order, but a threat, a stark reminder of the consequences of disobedience. Every glance from Kamsa was a warning, a silent promise of swift and merciless retribution. The city's vibrant life, its bustling markets and lively festivals, slowly faded like a dying ember. It was replaced by an unsettling silence and a pervasive fear that clung to the very stones of Mathurā. People moved like ghosts, their footsteps barely audible, their presence a mere shadow in the corners of the city. They were hiding their true selves, concealing their identities behind masks of compliance and fear. They were terrified to show even the slightest hint of emotion, lest it be misinterpreted as defiance. Kamsa trusted no one, his paranoia a festering wound that poisoned his every thought and action. He extended his distrust to not even his own family, viewing them as potential threats to his iron grip on power. His palace, once a place of celebration and joyous gatherings, now echoed with emptiness. It became a fortress of suspicion, a monument to his fear and paranoia. The spirit of the Yadavas, their pride and their heritage, was crushed beneath his iron will, his unyielding and merciless rule. Even the gods seemed to have abandoned Mathurā, turning a blind eye to the suffering of its people. Hope was a dangerous luxury, a flickering flame that threatened to be extinguished by the winds of despair. Kamsa, blinded by his own arrogance, believed himself invincible, untouchable. But fate, as it always does, was stirring, weaving a tapestry of events that would soon challenge his reign. A storm was gathering, a tempest of change brewing on the horizon. Change was inevitable, and Mathurā was about to be swept away by its force. On Devakī's wedding day, a day meant for celebration and joyous beginnings, fate had other plans in store. The air was thick with anticipation, the music vibrant, and the atmosphere filled with blessings for the newlywed couple. But as the festivities reached their peak, a sudden shift occurred. The sky, once a clear canvas of blue, turned ominous, mirroring the darkness that was about to descend. A prophecy, whispered on the winds of destiny, shattered Kamsa's world. A divine voice, resonating with the power of the cosmos, declared her eighth son would be his destroyer. The words hung in the air, heavy with consequence, forever altering the course of their lives. In a flash, Kamsa's affection, the facade of familial love, turned to terror and uncontrollable rage. The prophecy struck at the very core of his being, threatening his power and his future. Consumed by fear, he nearly killed Devakī, his own cousin, driven to the brink by the chilling words of the prophecy. But Vasudeva, ever the voice of reason and compassion, pleaded for her life, begging Kamsa to reconsider his rash actions. He offered a solemn promise, a desperate bargain, promising to surrender every child born to them, hoping to appease the tyrant and save his wife. Kamsa, though still wary, coldly agreed, seeing a twisted logic in Vasudeva's offer. He believed he could outsmart destiny. He imprisoned the couple in his palace dungeon, a cold and desolate place, ensuring their isolation and his control over their fate. The prophecy became his obsession, a relentless tormentor that consumed his waking hours and haunted his dreams. It was a constant shadow, haunting his every thought, driving him to the edge of madness. He sacrificed family, love and loyalty for control, willing to sever any bond that threatened his power. He was determined to defy destiny, to rewrite the stars themselves if necessary, clinging to the illusion of control. The kingdom watched, their hearts heavy with dread as their once benevolent ruler descended into tyranny. They witnessed as their king spiraled deeper and deeper into paranoia, his mind consumed by fear and suspicion. The eighth son, his destroyer, the child of prophecy, became the singular focus of his twisted obsession. The prophecy, the eighth son, became the only thing he could think about, the only threat he perceived in his increasingly distorted reality. Kamsa's cruelty grew with each passing day, fueled by the ever-present fear that gnawed at his soul. His actions were driven by a consuming fear of the future, a dread that poisoned his reign and cast a dark shadow over the land. The battle lines were drawn, not just between a king and his potential killer, but between free will and destiny. It was Kamsa versus fate itself, a desperate struggle against an unyielding prophecy. Each time Devakī gave birth within the cold, unforgiving walls of her prison, a new hope flickered, however briefly. The anticipation was palpable, a mix of fear and longing for a future free from tyranny. Kamsa, driven by a desperate need to control his destiny, murdered the newborn without hesitation. Each act of infanticide was a brutal assertion of his power, a chilling display of his resolve to defy the prophecy that haunted him. He was desperate to outwit prophecy, his mind consumed by paranoia and the gnawing fear of his impending doom. Every shadow seemed to whisper threats, every smile felt like a veiled mockery of his power. His brutality knew no bounds. It was a reflection of the terror that gripped his heart. He ruled with an iron fist, crushing any dissent and silencing any voice that dared to question his authority. The city suffocated under his paranoia, its inhabitants living in constant fear of his wrath. The once vibrant streets were now filled with hushed whispers and furtive glances as people tried to avoid the gaze of the ever-watchful guards. Innocents filled the prisons, their cries echoing through the cold, damp corridors. They were victims of Kamsa's paranoia, their only crime being suspected of disloyalty or dissent. And fear infected every home, poisoning the hearts of families and turning neighbor against neighbor. The joy of life was replaced by a pervasive sense of dread, as people struggled to survive under the tyrant's oppressive rule. Then, during a storm of unprecedented fury, as lightning illuminated the dark sky and thunder shook the very foundations of the city, the eighth child, Krishna, was born amidst the chaos and fury of the elements. His arrival was a beacon of hope in the darkest of times, a promise of liberation from the tyrant's grasp. Miraculously, Vasudeva, defying all odds and evading the watchful eyes of Kamsa's guards, escaped with Krishna, carrying him through the raging storm. In a daring act of deception, he swapped him for a baby girl in Gokula, entrusting Krishna's safety to the care of foster parents. Kamsa, discovering only a girl in Devakī's cell, tried to kill her, believing he had finally extinguished the threat to his reign. But in a moment of divine revelation, she transformed into the goddess Yogamaya, her celestial form radiating power and defiance. With a voice that echoed through the palace, she mocked him, delivering a chilling prophecy. "Your destroyer is safe, growing stronger with each passing day." Kamsa was left shaken to his core, the goddess's words piercing through his arrogance and striking at the heart of his deepest fears. His dread was deeper than ever, a suffocating weight that threatened to crush him under its immense pressure. He knew, with chilling certainty, that his time was running out. The prophecy had slipped beyond his grasp, its fulfillment now inevitable and unstoppable. He had tried to control fate, but fate, it seemed, had other plans for him. His enemy was real, alive, and coming for him, growing stronger and more determined with each passing moment. The seeds of his destruction had been sown, and the harvest was fast approaching. Kamsa's reign of terror had only made his fate more certain, accelerating the inevitable downfall that awaited him. His cruelty and paranoia had sealed his destiny, paving the way for his ultimate demise. The gods had intervened, setting in motion a chain of events that would ultimately lead to Kamsa's destruction and the restoration of Dharma. Destiny was now in motion, guided by the invisible hand of divine will. The goddess's words drove Kamsa to madness. He unleashed demons and assassins to kill every newborn in the land. Putana, Trinivata, and others failed, each defeated by the infant Krishna. News of these miracles terrified Kamsa. His enemy was clearly divine. His rule became erratic, his court paralyzed by fear. Ministers and generals fell victim to his violent suspicion. Mathurā was ruled by a king unraveling before their eyes. Kamsa isolated himself, haunted by visions of Krishna. The prophecy was now a deafening roar in his mind. Powerless, Kamsa waited for the storm he could not escape. Stories of Krishna's miracles in Vrindavana reached Kamsa. He knew the final confrontation was near. Kamsa staged a grand wrestling tournament, luring Krishna and Balarama to Mathurā. He set deadly traps, but the brothers overcame every obstacle. In the arena, they defeated Kamsa's champions with ease. Kamsa watched, paralyzed by dread, as prophecy unfolded before him. Krishna leapt to the royal dais, facing his uncle at last. Kamsa saw his life of cruelty flash before his eyes. There was no more rage, only acceptance. Destiny, long denied, had come to claim him. The iron fist of Mathurā was finally broken. Sri Krishna Gatir channel is here to serve Krishna's stories. Please subscribe this channel for unique visuals for upcoming stories.